to wait to get started, or should we get
No,
rolling?
we can start the webinar.
Okay. I call to order the September 3rd Ways and Means Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderwoman Nancy Parker Tice.
Here.
Alderwoman Kathy O'Neill.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And then item 2 on the agenda is approval of agenda. Does anyone have any changes or additions, deletions, what have you? All right, seeing none, that'll be approved by acclamation. Item number 3, I see no announcements, appointments, proclamations, or recognitions. Item number 4 is citizen comment. Do we have anyone in the Zoom gallery for citizen comment?
There are 4 people in the attendees gallery. Christy, Daniel Gumensheimer, Dave Schmidt, Eric Grunfelder, and Mark Ponder.
I think those are all city employees.
Right, you should
Okay.
probably allow them in, Kelly. At
Allowed
least
to talk?
Yeah, Dan and Eric, because they will be presenting. I mean, they won't be presenting, but yeah,
Right.
there you go.
But was
Okay, so who's Christy?
so we might, and to clarify, Bola, we've got, this is general citizen comment, but we also have like a public comment
Right.
about the budget, correct?
Exactly.
So I suppose that we could use this time if there's anyone and any citizen out there that cares to make a general comment to Ways and Means. We will recognize you now, but also you'll have an opportunity to specifically comment on the budget as we get down to that item on the agenda.
Right.
So come forward, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Doesn't sound like I can't tell if we have any takers or not, so I'm gonna.
Is anybody raising their hands?
I'm gonna consider.
No one's raising their hand at this point.
I will move on then from that item. Item number, lost my place. Item number 5, report of committee chair and alderman. I have no comment. Alderman Gould.
No comments.
Alderwoman Parker Tice.
No comments.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
None here either.
Okay, moving right along. Item number 6, citizen administrative report. 6A is the 2021 annual budget process. Citizen Budget Forum. Who is taking the lead on that?
So every time around this year, we promote an opportunity for our residents to attend the Ways and Means Committee. Certainly they have an opportunity to do that throughout the year in interacting with me and staff, and of course their elected officials, to share ideas and priorities they have and would like for you all to consider in the new year. So given the fact that we are in the budget preparation process at this time. So this is an opportunity for them to share ideas with you. In board docs, I included the requests that we have received so far, a total of 2. Oftentimes we hear nothing, which means that, the information is coming in through other means other than this one time. One came from Ward 4 at their Board of Managers meeting, and I believe that was shared with us by Alderwoman O'Neill. Do you care to talk about that briefly?
Yes, we met with Dan last year sometime. Looked at the dark spots we have here in Brentwood Forest that we would like better lighting for safety reasons. And we have a prioritized list. So although there was no money available for 2020, we would really like to see something in the budget for 2021 and move forward on putting up some of those lights with Ameren.
So that is one item. The second item came from a Ward 1 resident, Odine and Dawn, Odine Serrano and Dawn Robertson. They live in York Village, and their concern, like many others, have been the traffic on McKnight and the fact that trucks that are prohibited by weight continue to travel along that corridor. On occasion, there is speeding, or frequently there is speeding. So Major Hawkins, Chief Speece, the police chief from the city of Ladue, the Missouri State Highway, Missouri Department of Transportation, all have been working conjointly to try to address this issue without veil. And in the last several weeks or month, there is now a sign out there that alerts these truckers that if they are of a certain weight to 18,000 pounds and over, they are prohibited from that corridor. So what she is asking is that perhaps the city would allocate some funds to buy a permanent sign for placement there. So we're bringing that to you. We'll share that with public safety also when next they meet. If you want to give that some thought and give us some direction either way, we're happy to listen to that.
Madam Chairman?
Yeah, Alderwoman O'Neill?
I have a question about signage there. There is a sign posted going south on McKnight. It says no trucks. It's completely ignored. Is that the sign that they're talking about, or is there an electronic one that we're discussing?
Yeah, this is on the highway.
Okay.
Yeah, on 40.
All right.
Dan, have you been monitoring the emails back and forth? I don't know if you're included or not. Kelly, can you allow Dan to speak?
Yeah, it should be
Should
unmuted
be
now.
able to speak,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, MoDOT, they're MoDOT's message boards, and they put those out for about a 2-week period. So we don't own message boards. City of Ladue doesn't own message boards. So if you want anything electronic, you're going to have to rent it or buy it. And I don't know why we would put up permanent signage in MoDOT right away. We couldn't, we don't own the right of way. If MoDOT wanted to put something up there permanently, they would. We'd have to convince them that it's something that they would want to do. We could put up message boards on our property or ask them to do it again next year. And we could always put up our message boards if we did buy some or rent some in MoDOT's right away. You just have to fill out a permit.
To me, it sounds like those issues for either, traffic, be it enforcement or additional lighting or in lights in Brentwood Forest would be, maybe it's appropriate if those issues are run through public safety first, or public, seems like lights are public safety. I hear about lights a lot on public safety. And that, based on what their recommendations are, we can look at, whether to allocate resources or how to, off the top of my head, I know we have a street light program, but I can't recall from memory the extent to which Brentwood Forest, is on the list or not, but we can look at it. Those are my thoughts. I mean, I don't think I'm necessarily here. I know I'm not here to say granted or denied, but that's my reaction to the feedback we've gotten so far. Anyone else have any other members of the committee have comment or questions on those issues? Okay. Alderman Gould, sorry. You'll have to,
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. On the Brentwood Forest, how much of the lighting is, or I guess it's more of a question of ignorance right now of how that all works. How much of it, of the streets and parking and cul-de-sac areas that are in there right now are city property, and how much is it like Brentwood Forest owned space? And I'm assuming, Alderwoman O'Neill, that all of the dark spots that you're talking about are city owned areas, correct?
Yes, Brentwood Forest Board of Managers is allocating some money for things that are Brentwood Forest owned. It's a mixed bag. Ward 1 had people donate land. I'm not sure that's not the right word, but they gave permission for private land to have lights installed. So it would be the same premise as that for some of the areas here that are not city owned.
Okay.
Do we have, Paula, do we have anyone else? The screen just changed. Anyone else? I know we had some written comments. Anyone else in the citizen gallery that has comments they'd like to make here tonight?
Ellie, is
I
anybody
can't.
raising their hands?
There's Mark Ponder has raised his hand.
Okay.
Okay, sir, come forward.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay, thank you. New to this process, but my question regarding the budget and Ways and Means is not a suggestion, but more I'm curious, what is the projected impact on overall tax revenues? Is there a model that would suggest, lower retail tax revenues and so on associated with COVID-19 and the impact on overall spending, or what's the projected budget changes on the revenue side for 21?
We have discussed that a lot. Paula, would it be perhaps, that's on the list generally, isn't it? In terms of, I thought I saw it. I know we talked about it regularly.
It is. Karen is scheduled to.
Yeah, I'd like to answer his
update.
question, but when best
Right.
to do it is more,
So it's coming up.
all right. So yeah, Mr. Ponder, we will be discussing that later on in this meeting in depth.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? I can't see a wave, so
There are no other
Oh,
ways at this point.
plan to a packed house tonight. All right. Item 6B, seeing no further citizen comments, we'll move on. Item 6B is investment portfolio update from Brad Lukens. Mr. Lukens, you're on deck. I think he's muted.
All right, here we go. At least I didn't start talking without being unmuted. Thank you, guys. Yes, I'm Brad Lukens again, Arbitrage Management Group, and I've been working with the Finance Committee to help you guys invest a number of bond proceed accounts. I think I've spoken to a number of you all already a few times. So tonight, Bola and Karen just asked me to do a summary of how things are going. I figure I might start with just what in the world is going on today. So, leading into 2020, interest rates were high, at least much higher than they are now and what they had been historically. And if you remember, I think it was November or December of last year, the Fed lowered the Fed funds rate 1/4 point. And then they continued to do that 2 more times in the first and second quarter, I think, of this year. Of course, COVID hit, and here we are. We've got, record unemployment, although some of that's coming back, and some economic concerns and hurdles to get over, as everyone is feeling. So I figured I'll kind of refresh you guys on the strategy that we have done for our clients over time. And really what seems to work the best, no matter what the circumstances, is a laddered investment strategy. All the types of securities that we work with are the same types that your internal investment policy allows. We don't do stocks or mutual funds or anything else like that. So I say that our interests are aligned, our expertise are aligned with what you and all of our other clients can do. Bond proceeds, simple and safe, fixed income, treasury bonds, US government agency bonds, CDs, stuff where you can't lose your principal. So we create these laddered strategies. And what that means is we have short, middle, and a little bit longer term securities, so that in the event that interest rates rise, we have shorter term securities that are maturing and able to be reinvested at those higher yields. In the event of this year, where we have a declining interest rate environment, we have longer term securities that do one of 2 things. And in your case, kind of both. Those longer term securities will hold on to the higher yield that we were able to get before for a longer time to kind of bridge the gap to maintain that yield and the earnings. Additionally, sometimes that gives you an opportunity to sell and book gains. And as many of you may know, in the bond market, it's just supply and demand. So as interest rates fall, that means there are more and more folks out there that are buying US Treasury and US government agency bonds. They're worried, they're taking their money out of other types of investments or whatever else they were going to do, and they hunker down, they stay safe. It's a flight to quality. The price goes up and the yield goes down, and that's where we've been this year. So when the price goes up, just like with anything, we may find an opportunity to sell for gains. And we've been fortunate enough to do that a number of times here in several different accounts for the city. So I'm happy to say that that laddered strategy has worked very well on both sides when we have rising and falling interest rates. So I'll open up to any questions and then I'll just dive in because I know I probably don't have too much time. Any questions so far? All right.
None that I see. Go on.
Okay. So I hope that all of you have been able to open and see the portfolio analysis that I put together for Karen and Bulla. If we just look at the first page, what this is we've been working with the city for give or take a month or two, about 2 years. So all these numbers and everything that you'll see here on each of these pages, everything is laid out the exact same. It's one page for each account. And so once you kind of get the flow of the first one, the next ones will follow. The top left of this first page says 2014 COP Debt Service Reserve Fund. So this is your 2014s. Again, the reserve fund is an amount that has to stay in the account until the bond matures. It's there just as a protection mechanism for your bondholders. And you have the ability to invest that money to earn back what it's costing you to borrow that money and all of your project fund until it's spent. So it's a considerable amount of money, and it's a considerable opportunity that you have and that you're taking advantage of to invest this money to earn as much as you can, and you're allowed again to earn back what it's costing you to borrow it. And there's a little known arbitrage rule that says that you're allowed, once you recapture your cost of borrowing, you're allowed to invest in municipal bonds above your cost of borrowing, and you can actually profit from the requirement to hold a reserve fund. That's a little bit down the road. That's a goal of ours. And I feel like we're doing a pretty good job to kind of getting you guys there. So in the middle towards the top, right above the spreadsheet, on each one, you'll see there's a requirement. In the 2014, you've got a requirement to hold $576,000 sitting there. And on each of these pages, you have a current holdings and historicals. Current is just that. Those are the securities that you currently own. Historicals are ones that you have owned previously that have either since matured and been reinvested, or we have been fortunate enough to be able to sell and book gains, and that is listed on the right side of that under the historicals, each of the gains that we were able to sell for. So just going under current holdings there, we've basically broken up your debt service reserve requirement, the $576,000, into thirds. That's that ladder. In this case, because we're in such a low yielding environment, it's very flat. The yield curve is very flat. So if you invested for 3 months, for 1 month, for 4 years, the yield is literally within a couple of basis points. So since interest rates were so much higher in the not too distant past, we have just not warmed up to the fact that that might be where they are. And so we're really trying to hold our clients' investments, any reinvestments, short term until just after the election or within 3 to 6 months after the election. If you all remember, in 2016, interest rates again were very low. That's when Brexit happened in June of 2016. And we were able to sell, you all weren't clients at the time, but we were able to sell a number of clients out and book gains because of the flight to quality. The price went up and we were able to take advantage of that. We positioned those clients to reinvest for a short period of time until the election. And fortunately, after the election, bond yields skyrocketed and so did the stock market. And so we hope that something like that may happen again. We can't get much lower than we are now. So it's a pretty safe bet at this point. So we're doing very short-term investments until shortly after the election to see what happens. We want to have a portion of your portfolio maturing then so that we have an opportunity to reinvest at a higher yield if that happens. So that's why you see a maturity of December 1st of 2020, November 19th, 2 weeks after the election, and then June 22nd of 2021. On the far right, you have the amount of interest that that account has earned to date. These securities pay interest every 6 months, and then at maturity, they pay the last interest payment and all of your principal back. And under historicals at the bottom there, those are securities that you have owned. You had earned $17,202 of interest, and then we were fortunate enough to sell 2 of those for gains and booked an additional $8,417. So you see a grand total at the very bottom under summary, total earnings on this account on the $576,000, we've been able to earn $45,428 to date. And that's out of a time frame just under 2 years. I promise the next few will go much faster now that you know you see the gist. The 2015 TIF bonds, the debt service reserve requirement is much smaller. You've got a reserve requirement there of $224,800. You hold 3 securities, FHLB, that's Federal Home Loan Bank, Fannie Mae, and a Treasury bill. We've broken that $224,000 into roughly 1/3 each. You see that you've owned the top 2 for quite a while. And then the bottom one, we just reinvested about a month ago. So in this account, the securities that you currently own, you've earned about $7,739. And then under historicals, those securities plus the gains had earned you about $7,769. So for this $224,000, this is a total earnings of about $12,356 over about a 2-year period. I should tell you, I just kind of on the back of the napkin math here. If I go back to the 2014, you guys might be interested in this. For just a little under a 2-year period, those earnings with that amount of reserve requirement that was invested is right at about 3.94% return. Now I probably should have gone back to pat the finance committee on their back a little bit more, but 3.94% back here 2 years ago. I mean, a 30-year U.S. Treasury bond was probably mid 2%. So the fact that we're flirting with 4%, especially in what's historically been a relatively low interest rate environment, is pretty neat. So the 2015, we've already gone over that, but your earnings to date on just under 2 years was about 3.44%. If we jump up to the 2017, this one is a little bit more complicated, only because when we started working with you guys, the 2017 and the 2018 debt service reserve funds were a combined account. So I couldn't really separate them to show performance, so I gave it all to you together. What you'll see is currently in the 2017 reserve account, you see there you've got a reserve requirement of $510,500. Underneath at the bottom, you see a whole lot of other securities, and those are just because they were commingled. The 2 accounts were commingled, and they hadn't yet been segregated. So in this 2017 account, this is the performance of that account, but money was moved out to the 2018 when it was segregated. So you'll see there under historicals that there are $23,309 of additional gains that we were able to take. So a total is roughly $111,000. Let's run to the 2018 on the following page. This will bring it home. This one, you've got a reserve requirement there of almost $3.2 million. And you see larger quantities there The majority of that money from the 17 was segregated and moved out to form the 2018 reserve fund account. So your current holdings, you'll see that they go from 2020 all the way to 2027. And actually, we were able just yesterday to sell that September of 2027 FHLB, Federal Home Loan Bank bond, and book about $18,000 in gains for the city. So that was something that was very new. So this combined account has earned a total of about $154,000. And if we just kind of add in our heads the additional $18,000 to that, what's that, $170,000, $172,000 or so that this money has earned. And that's over just a little bit over a 2-year period. Now let's go. This is kind of a little bit more fun because we're talking more money, more money. Your 2018 project fund. I work with Karen and Bola monthly with Craig Schluter. Craig does a fantastic job of putting together a summary and a projection of how your spending is going to go in the months to come. And all we do is we do our best to forecast that with keeping ample amount of cash on hand in case there's a property acquisition that wasn't seen or something comes up. So we have money available, because the last thing we want to do is find ourselves in a position where we have to sell at whatever the market's going to pay. Don't want to do that. So we're very cautious with this, but we do look for additional earning opportunities when we have market volatility. So in the 2018 project fund, you see this is a dwindling amount here. You don't have a lot left in there. Nearly all of it is invested, or it's accounted for, because you have expenditures coming up very soon. And Karen, Bola, and Craig and I just had a meeting Tuesday or something of this week where we got all on, made sure we were on the same page with everything. Under historicals, you see all these securities that you guys have owned in the past, where we've either been able to sell and book gains for you, or reinvested to a time that you're going to need it, or that money matured and it was spent. So if you go to the very bottom of that second page of the 2018 project fund, you see that earnings on this are $1,185,347. We've been fortunate to, just in this one account, find an additional $167,000 in market opportunities where we book those gains. So the 18 reserve fund has earned about $1,443,000. This is over just a little bit over a 2-year period, since July of 18. 2019, times changed a little bit. This was end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter of this year. COVID hit, nobody saw it coming. Fed had just lowered the Fed funds rate 2 times, or maybe once, and another one was coming. So we actually made the recommendation to hold the 2019 debt service reserve and the 19 project funds in the money market for a temporary period of time, because money market yields were still higher than 0 at the time. Money market yields are what is considered a lagging indicator. And so while other types of permissible investments, treasuries, agencies, CDs, and the like, will decline very fast when we have situations like we've seen recently, the money market falls much slower. So we kind of used that money market earning a higher yield while other permissible securities were lower. Then about 2-3 months ago, one or 2 months ago, it looks like, we made the recommendation to go ahead and get this money invested, because at that point, money market had fallen below other permitted investment yields. So here we are. We're not real happy, as you guys can see, of what the yields are today, but we're making a conscious effort of trying to keep those securities short term, and we are hoping that interest rates will rise after the election. Hopefully very soon, we are able to look in the rearview mirror and see COVID-19, but these are the times. So just in the last month, the debt service reserve requirement for the 19 has earned $150, yielding 6 basis points. It's not zero. So that's what I keep telling myself. It doesn't make me feel much better, but you know. And then the 2019 project fund, these are laddered out very, very short term, as you see, earning, you know, at this point, an extra basis point or two is a good thing. So this money is fully invested, and it's so far it's earned $4,700 over this time frame of just a couple of months. So all in all, over roughly a 2-year period, this money has earned the city about $1.8 million. So that's something that I think is kind of exciting. And we're as a group and myself just thankful for the opportunity to continue working with the city. I think Bola and Karen and Craig, the whole finance committee team, you guys are wonderful to work with. I have a lot of municipal clients, and I've told them before, and I'll tell them again in front of you all that they're very responsive and wonderful to work with. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys and to work with these folks as a great team. So I think that's my update. If anybody's got any questions or anything, I'm happy to do my best to answer them.
Thanks, Brad. Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't look like it. That was a very thorough presentation. That's a good return. Well done. Thank you for giving that, for updating us. I guess if there are no questions, I'll just move on. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you guys.
Brad.
The next item are department reports. Item 7A is the audit update. Who's got that?
Do you want me to do it, Paula?
Yes.
Okay. So, as you all know, Rana Alanis, Paula, is that how you say
Yes.
it? Alanis. Anyway, she started the Wednesday 8/26, which is just a little over a week ago. Of that open item list that was sent, it was found that there were some items that had been sent already on those. And also one item, which is the tax abatements that are needed for the CAFR. They had already gotten from the county, but we got it again. So there's one major thing left that Rana and I are working on, which has to do with the police and fire pension fund. And how it was being reported in the past and what they wanted, how they want it reported now. And Rana was not in today, but I talked to her on the phone and I think she emailed me. I think by tomorrow we will have that resolved. And then we can't do anything else until we get the draft of the financial. And when I say there's some things on that list, for example, transmittal letter, that's something Bola writes. Well, she writes it based on those financials. She reports based on that, I guess is what it is. There is a MD&A, management discussion and analysis. That's another thing you can't do without the financials. And then the statistical section, there's some stuff we need from that. So I can't speak for Bot Steel other than the last email I got. She said that, I was just telling this to Bola yesterday or today, she has a lot of staff that have children that went back to school and apparently they got exposed. So now the staff's out, but she is working on our stuff on the weekends because we both worked last weekend on it. So she is aware of it and until we get that, and it can't go to Daniel and Jones. And as Jamie told you, that's 45 days from when the time they get it. So that's where we're at. Hopefully tomorrow, the very last thing, the big issue, will be done. Whatever Ron is doing, we'll get it done. And we just have to wait till we get the financials back from her to finish the CAFR portion. But that financial statements is what Daniel Jones needs to audit. So they don't need that transmittal letter and all that. That's for the CAFR that we present for the award. But they do need the financials. So that's where we're at on that. Any questions?
I have a question, and correct me if I'm just conceptually not understanding this. We have to provide information to Bots Deal to finish up our financials, and then that gets over to Daniel and Henry for the audit, right? So when do you estimate that our portion's going to be delivered into the hands of
The
Bots
only
Deal?
other thing left is this issue that came up, and Paula can attest to this. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and there were 4 different opinions on what we should do. And this came up after Rana started. So I think we got the issue settled today. That's what Rana and I are working on, that we will be done getting that last bit of stuff. Everything else is there. So that means that the financials can be worked on. That portion of the pension fund, they can't work on until they get this back from us. But it was a total major change of what was asked of us to do from what has been being done every year since before I came. So anyway, that is tomorrow. That's what Ron and I are shooting for. That doesn't mean other portions of the financials can't be done, but in other words, they aren't just waiting on that to work on the financials.
Right, but just, I mean, so a week, you know, I mean,
tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I know. I don't know what that sound is. I don't know if I'm ringing back, but so we can at least, do you estimate that by tomorrow, okay, let's say maybe into early next week, that Bots and Deal will have everything, our side of the street is done. They've got it now, it's in their hands, and then they do their thing, and then it goes to Daniel and Henry. And then from that point,
Yeah.
it's 45 days.
Our stuff was
So-
pretty much done, but this, and I won't even get into what all of it is about, but it's about the police and fire pension fund.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to get into the weeds. I just wanted a time
Right.
estimate. But that's moving along, so that sounds good to me.
I mean, one of their open item list says they want the transmittal letter, that they want the MD&A, and they want the statistical section. And we can't do that. They give us the financials, especially Bola's portion. It's pretty intense, and she has to write a letter. It's like 8 pages long, maybe. And she can't do that without those. So that's that part we can't give them, that they put on the open item list. So, but the one thing on the pension we hope will be done. I talked to Rana today. She's working on it, and hopefully tomorrow we'll get it to them. That's what I'm pushing for.
So this open item that you're saying can't be provided, how is Bots and Deal going to deal with that?
Can be provided. That's what B and Rana are working on. We just got a decision on what needs to be done today. So she's doing her part. Then I don't know if she's coming in tomorrow, but it doesn't matter. She can email it to me and we can talk on the phone. It'll be done and we can provide that to them, and that's it. That they have everything, Bots Deal, that they need to do the financials.
Okay, that was, wanted to have that clear in my head. Nancy?
So I have this question on timing of Bots Deal and then Daniel Jones. And I must have taken notes at the last meeting because I wrote down Daniel Jones 4 to 6, earliest 4 to 6 weeks. Does that mean that it's 4 to 6 weeks from now that they would be finished, or do they need 4 to 6 weeks to work once they get the stuff from Bots Deal? And how does that lead to finishing this for Brentwood? Fine, all the steps.
Jamie's always said, which is with Daniel and Jones, the auditors, that they need 45 days after they get the stuff from Bots Deal. But keep in mind, there were some stuff done on this audit back in before COVID, where they came in and actually were able to visually look at things they wanted audited. And there's been a lot of stuff we've sent them already. But once they get those financials, there are going to be there are other items they may be asking for. So they're saying, Daniel Jones, the auditors, right? Yeah. I get them mixed up with Daniel and Henry. Daniel and Jones, 45 days after they get the stuff from Bot Steel.
Okay. And could I make a recommendation or a suggestion for next year? Because I've only been on the board 2 years, but this has been an issue both years. And I'm wondering if this could come up at the Ways and Means Committee earlier in the year, or just like there's an annual budget process calendar, if there could be some sort of similar calendar that, like at the oversight, as Sunny said, that, you know, just the oversight big level, so that we make sure that this is moving along and are just aware of the status of this before this time of year. So if there are hiccups, we find out in late spring as opposed to late summer. I don't know if there's a way to do that.
Sure.
For next
I'm
year.
not sure what the calendar would show, but I guess we could come up with something between Bull and I.
We should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Or just a high level. I mean, we don't need all
Yeah, just timeline, because I think we know when it's supposed to be done.
Right.
And when, because it starts with the letter, if you all remember, you do receive a letter from the auditor that asks questions, you know, ethical type questions. So that's when it starts. And that's earlier in the year. So we can put some sort of timeline together that shows you how it should progress. And that would give you a good idea how we're, you know, moving forward. And
It'd be nice to know before it's like a rush at the end, like it's
Sure.
been 2 years in a row. So
Right, we can do that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe if it's like there are 5 phases, you know, we get updates like phase 1's moving along nicely. I mean, you know, it can be pretty high level. It's just that there are problems that come up. Yeah, I agree with Alderwoman Tice. We want to learn about them as quickly as possible. Alderwoman O'Neill?
Just a question about the final product. In past years, we had a print spiral bound product. If it would move things along faster and we could just have a product done online, that might chop a few days off at the other end, and I think we'd all be just as happy to have it online. Can we do that?
I don't think that's
I want a
the
paper
issue.
copy.
That's really not the issue. The heavy lifting comes before you do the print.
Right.
And we're not doing it, they're doing it. So we're paying for that.
Yeah, we need copies for like the library. I think we give them 2 or 3 copies for the public. So if they're gonna print 5, they can do 10 or 15 or whatever. Yeah.
But we'll get you your digital copy.
I like things online.
And get Sunny your old-timey paper copy, because I like to thumb through things. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on. Item number 2, or 7B, would be the finance proposed budget update.
Which really all that is what you received right after the last meeting, where Alderwoman Tice asked for the 1 extra column with the percent change from the estimated to 2021, and then the change in the, I believe it was Cablevision. So there's really been nothing happened since between then and now to change anything on this particular document. And if you want, let me go back to the agenda. Do we want to address Mr. Ponder's question now, or yes, Bola?
It's up to Chairwoman Sims. I think we've talked about that at the Board of Aldermen meetings and Ways and Means. So if you would allow Karen to just provide a summary of what we've experienced, you know, during the COVID, which would be March 14th, March 21st through the end of July, or even through August. It shows how we're performing in comparison to what we predicted and going into next year.
I'm sure that if this is the best time to do that, please, Karen, if you wouldn't mind.
So as the board's been told, we're very lucky in that we are somewhat pretty much on budget for our sales tax. Part of it is because, you know, many of the stores were open, so we didn't see a great reduction. And then secondly, this time last year, or maybe a little later in the year, we were working on the budget and made a decision to be a little more conservative, and we somewhat flatlined it or did not show much growth, particularly in our big revenues such as sales tax. I think that was a good thing because, you know, we would have probably been somewhat under budget at this point because we probably wouldn't have met that. But at this point, we're pretty much on budget. Based on that decision, we still flatlined sales tax in this document we're talking about right now, particularly for sales tax, because we don't know what is going to happen with COVID. But through the heart of COVID this year, we have done okay, pretty much stayed on budget, so we might as well leave it that way. And that was what was presented to the Ways and Means at the last meeting, and that's still what we're looking at this point. So in answer to his question, we are budgeting flatlining our sales tax from this year because we are on budget, and based on that, the department heads are doing their operational expenditures accordingly.
We should also add that the Board of Aldermen also directed staff to do cost containment.
I forgot.
And,
I was going to say that. Yes.
So go ahead and cover that if you.
Okay. Yes. BOA had the departments back when this first started to come up with their cost containments of what they thought they could do without, and we would not spend out of this budget, and it was over $1 million, correct, BOA?
Yes, total.
Yes, and that included capital.
Right.
It was out of all the funds. And as of this coming Tuesday night, there will be a presentation to the board asking them to release some of those cost containments because we are somewhat on budget, but still being conservative. We did not ask for all that $1 million back, but we did reserve the right to maybe look at it again in a month. So the departments prioritize their cost containments as to what they thought they really needed this year. That's what we're taking to the board on Tuesday night to ask that those be released. And then we'll look at it again in another month. So overall, financially, based on the decisions made in the beginning by the board and by what BOLA had the departments do, we're pretty good financially. So that's where we are, COVID related.
Which of course is wonderful news.
Yes, it is. It is.
Mr. Ponder raised his hand.
I'll recognize him.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate that additional information. So I guess the follow-up I have is, what was there a trend from the first quarter of this year to second or third quarter? Was there a decline in revenue, or did it stay relatively flat? You commented about the retail establishments were able to generally stay open.
I would say we were meeting our budget. So I don't think we did not see the major decline that we anticipated, which we were thinking the cost containments were put in place because we made an assumption back then that we would lose 45% a month in sales tax revenue, and we did not lose that. And it fluctuated. So
we lost less than that. So as Karen said, it was 45% that we projected. And then when we came back each month, just to share with the board how things were trending, we saw that we saw a loss instead of 45%, for instance, we saw 25%. And then we saw a loss of 9%. So
Right.
it just gradually decreased from month to month. And as
Right.
Karen said, the primary reason is that a majority of the stores that stayed open in the city of Brentwood were stores that everybody patronized when this started, when St. Louis County enacted their executive order, and where all of us perhaps were hoarding items in stores. We have stores in Brentwood that provide day-to-day necessities, and people were still patronizing that. So that has been the difference for us. And mind you, you go back into our budget document, you realize that the city depends on 72% of its revenue comes from sales tax. So we have really been in a good place. And as such, we've only laid off about 68 people, that's a lot, of part-time employees that primarily work at the community center. So when we talk about loss, I feel that we should bring this to the next Ways and Means Committee and allow Eric Grenenfelder, the Parks and Rec Director, to have a discussion with this committee about how this has impacted his revenue stream. Because even though sales tax is performing well for him, he relies a lot on fees for the programs, whether it's youth programming, senior programming, adult, different leagues. That has impacted his budget significantly. So I've asked him to prepare information to share with you all at the next meeting.
I would just tag on to that with what Bola's saying about Eric. He has also done, from what I'm looking at the financials, an excellent job of cost containment within that fund, based on what he knows his revenues were down. But he can give you a better picture at, like Bola said, the next Ways and Means Committee meeting.
Okay, good. We'll look forward to hearing that. Any other items on this issue? I think if not, we can move on to 7C, which is the 2020 set ad valorem property tax rates.
Right.
Got that.
So as you know, they're preliminary right now, and the reason they're preliminary is because we do not have the final assessed valuations that come after the St. Louis County Board of Equalization meets, which is not until this month. But based on what we did get, which are assessed values as of July 15th, we prepared the items in front of you, which if you look at the memo, we're looking at all the assessed values increased. I'm sorry, except for residential property values, they all increased. And commercial decreased and personal property values decreased. So for the general fund, library, and pension, we are looking at estimated tax revenues of $312,856 for general, $917,505 for the library, and $1,146,667 for the pension fund. I can almost guarantee you that that's going to change when the final assessed values come up, but I can't tell you if they're going to be up or down. It does give you a general idea of what the property taxes are estimated to be. And it's possible, and I don't know if Kathy wants to speak to it, that the libraries could change, but for right now, that's based on the information I had when this was prepared.
They are discussing a slight decrease because services are more limited, and they're feeling as though the residents should get what they pay for. So by decreasing it a bit, they can still operate with the staff that they have, and then next year reevaluate.
But that decrease is not in these numbers yet.
No.
Any
Okay.
questions? I guess all of this will go to public hearing the 21st to the board, correct?
That's correct. We've posted the public hearing notice. It is too late to make the changes that will come from lowering the tax rate for the library. I believe their goal is to roll that back so that there's less revenue to the tune of maybe 100,000 perhaps. So we will be presenting revised numbers for them in your board packet for the meeting on the 21st.
And Bola, does this committee need to make a recommendation to send this to the board?
I see
Yes.
one in the,
That's what I thought.
so I guess at this point, the chair would, and thank you for making this easy, recommend a motion to approve the recommended 2020 property tax rates and forward to the Board of Aldermen for consideration and adoption at the September 21st meeting for a first and second reading.
So moved.
So, second.
We've got a first by Alderwoman Tice and a second by Alderman Gould. Is there any discussion? All right, and seeing none, we'll take a vote. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
and Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay, great. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 7D, the finance, the monthly financial report for July 2020.
Right. It's not August because we're only in the third day in September. We're not quite closed yet. But it also could also be seen on that the budget update spreadsheet, because those numbers were as of July 31st also. However, this memo highlights certain ones that are below budget. So the first ones are the fines, which there are 3 categories of them, and that's just based on the number of tickets written. The trash pickups were COVID related. That still could go back and be back on budget. The intergovernmental revenue, which is the school district, we probably will see that maybe start back. I don't know, it depends, because that is reimbursement for school crossing guards and the school resource officer. Again, weed cutting and cleanup, COVID related. Same with the festival revenue. We will not get any of that because it was canceled. The slate premium won't come in until later in the year. But with that said, total general revenues are still under budget. I'm sorry, on budget. And we're still looking good in the general fund. Same thing in the general fund expenditures. The departments are doing really well about staying on budget. That includes with their cost containment. And total capital, the capital revenues are slightly under budget, but still not doing bad for most of it being sales tax. The capital improvements is where a lot of the cost containments came from. You will see that, probably some more spending in that if the cost containments get released Tuesday night. Economic Development Fund, we've discussed that, and that obviously we probably won't reach what we thought we would, but we do have the money to pay our debt service, which is our #1 priority in that fund. Parks and Rec, again, that's COVID related. A big portion of theirs is sales tax, but then a whole lot of it is the money for programs. We refunded a lot of money for programs. Expenditure, I already spoke to that. Eric's done really a good job about keeping that, watching his spending. Sewer improvements is the same thing. Again, we only get sewer assessment money in there. You can't make that go up any higher. And so far, spending's been under budget, so we're doing pretty good in that fund too. With all that said, we could be doing a lot worse. But even with that said, the cost containments I attribute it to Bola. Bola was the one coming in and to management team meetings, and we're all looking around at each other like, what? And then with that direction, the department heads did a really good job of coming up with cost containment. So we're doing very well financially. That's all I had, unless you had any more questions.
Anyone have any questions? Well, thank you for Lola. Thank you, Karen, and Eric, everybody, who's made that happen. I know it's been no small task, and the fact that we are, knock wood, faring well, and it looks as though we'll continue to do so is fantastic news. All right, well, I will move on. Item number 8, there's nothing on the consent agenda. There's no old business, no new business. Item number 11 is citizen comments. Do we have anyone else out there in the internets that would like to make a citizen comment?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Seeing none. All right, at that point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, real quick, just as our next meeting is October 1st, correct? I had that on my calendar. That is it just so happens that the first Thursday of October is a Thursday, is the first.
You're right. It is October 1st.
Okay, all right. And that's our net. We don't have any interim special meetings between now and then. Just wanted to confirm that. But at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
What time, Sunny?
I have it at 5:30, which is the time that it has been working for me.
Exactly. That's correct.
So October 1st, 5:30, be there, be square. All right, I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
geez.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you, Kelly. It was nice to have a new face and it went well. Thank you.
Well,
very
thank
much.
you. I'm just learning, but
Oh, yeah, very
It'll
nice.
get better.
Nice to meet you virtually.
thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Welcome.
So we'll do our best to keep all this, keep track of everything and know what I'm doing a little bit better next time around. So very good.
Went
Very
fine.
well today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.